Hit me.
From Studio A in Arcata, behind a redwood curtain, it's time for... Succotash Chats, the original Comedy Soundcast Soundcast featuring interviews from Comedy
Soundcast.
Comedians, soundcasters, and other showbiz folk. And here's your host from up the coast, practically unknown outside of Comedy Soundcast Soundcasting, Tyson Saner.
Saluton. Estas me, Tyson Saner. I'll be your host for this final episode of Season 3 of Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast. If you've not been listening to the previous episodes, then you might be unaware that this is also the final episode before our hiatus, but more on that later. This also happens to be our 200th episode, and what a full episode I've got for you this time. It's a chats episode, and I'm joined by producer, director, violence prevention specialist, friend of Succotash, and one half of the team that hosts Chillpak Hollyood Hour, Phil Leirness. Mr. Leirness, along with Dean Haglund of the X-Files and the Lone Gunman, have been creating and publishing episodes of Chillpak Hollyood Hour since 2007. They've always been supportive of Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast, which itself has been around for your listening pleasure since 2011. Chillpak Hollyood Hour, to me at least, has always seemed like a big brother of sorts to Succotash. Not in any insidious way, of course. There used to be a lot more crossover between Succotash and Chillpak in those early days. In addition to my chat with Mr. Leirness, I've received some special audio sent in by a few Soundcaster supporters of Succotash, whose identities I will keep a surprise for now. There's at least one surprise I don't even want to tease at the beginning here. Suffice to say, it's a very pleasant surprise for listeners and this host alike. All will become clear eventually. Finally, I'll mention that after my discussion with Phil Leirness, I've got a bonus chat featuring none other than original Succotash host and current executive producer of Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast, Mark Hershon, who discusses the past and the future of the program with me and sends us off in style. Or something like that. No, I like that. In style. Let's begin this send-off extravaganza, shall we? Before we begin, I wanted to share some news with you regarding our most frequent contributor and friend of the show, Raging Moderate Will Durst. As listeners of Succotash know, Mr. Durst suffered a stroke in October of 2019. I've been holding on to the remaining bursts of Durst I received and spreading them out over time so as to have at least one in every episode until the hiatus. Because somehow it doesn't quite feel like an episode of Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast without a burst of Durst. So I have one for you. It's from September 29th, 2019. Full disclosure, I goofed. I'm not sure how this happened, but this final burst of Durst I have for you isn't exactly the last one I received. It is, in fact, the second to last one. The actual last one I received was from our penultimate episode, 199. Again, I don't know how I managed to skip this one. My apologies to Mr. Durst and a continued sentiment of get well soon to him from myself and everyone here at Succotash. So now, from September 29th of 2019, Blow That Whistle, in which our intrepid correspondent makes a few conjectures about what the hell is going on.
Hey guys, Will Durst here with a few choice words about the rampant White House craziness after a whistleblower claimed Donald Trump attempted to shake down a foreign leader to interfere on his behalf in the next election, which is so illegal even Vladimir Putin was impressed. Our president canceled an arms shipment that Ukraine was counting on to hold off Russia and also threatened to keep our vice president from making a state visit unless Vladimir Zelensky played ball by investigating Joe Biden's son, Hunter. Keeping Mike Pence from coming to your country doesn't sound very menacing, more like a reward. Supposedly, records of this call were diverted to a super-secret server that stores other calls and documents that make the president look bad. So it must be one hell of a server, maybe a warehouse in Bethesda. The president responded by saying the whistleblower was like a spy, and in the old days, they knew how to deal with spies, suggesting we execute witnesses to his crimes. Isn't that an impeachable offense? He's stacking them up like 747 circling O'Hare after a blizzard the day before Thanksgiving. And we all know how the rest of this is going to play out. He'll deny anything happened, which might be tough this time around since he already admitted it. Next, he'll say that even if he did it, there's nothing illegal about it. Then he'll attack the accuser and call it a partisan witch hunt and another example of a larger conspiracy against him, the best president ever. And during all these predictable machinations, he'll also try to distract us from focusing on it. Maybe finally release his tax records, or leak photos from the night he spent with Stormy Daniels, or start a war. But we all know what it'll boil down to. He'll blame Hillary. For Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast, I'm Will Durst.
And you can send your Get Well cards to P.O. Box 225126, San Francisco, USA, 94122. You can also email him at durst.will@yahoo.com. That is durst.will@yahoo.com. You can also reach out to him on Twitter. That is at Will Durst, at symbol and WILLDURST. There's a Will Durst fan page on Facebook. And of course you can go to willdurst.com to find the Will Durst Journal, which is comedy for people who read or know someone who does.
Right? Right.
And now here's part 1 of my interview with Phil Leirness. The recording date was March 11th, 2020, for context, and we begin with an unfortunate COVID-19 update.
Breaking news coverage of the end of the world, and...
the end of the world, what is Biden the nomination?
I don't know, just the, every minute. I mean, Tom Hanks has the coronavirus, for crying out loud.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I hadn't heard that.
And the only reason he's going to survive is because he's in Australia, where they actually have tests.
Well, good thing for that, then.
Yeah.
So, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm good. I just got back from all things my neighborhood council health and public safety meeting, which wasn't supposed to have anything to do with the coronavirus. Just normal stuff, normal keeping the just a normal meeting about keeping the streets safe for democracy. But
healthy and safe for democracy.
Exactly.
I like that as a concept.
It's what Dean and I have been doing through podcasting and through the use of our fists.
Yes. So podcasting, has Chillpak been going since 2007?
It has been. I mean, we missed a week at one point when we had catastrophic technical failure, maybe about a year ago.
Oh, wow.
But with the exception of that, yeah, it's been going for almost 13 years, May of 2007. And we started season 2 of the show 16 weeks ago.
I've been seeing it listed in the app that I use to listen to podcasts, or soundcasts as we call them here, as season 2. I saw them come up, and I was like,
yeah, we decided to do that when we were invited to join the good folks at Odyssey Radio, Odyssey Dare to Wonder, and we converted it to a 1 hour, once a week radio show with commercial breaks and whatnot. And then, of course, available at the same time on iHeartRadio, and then available a few hours thereafter in podcast form. But we thought, since we were making that move and changing the format slightly, gone were the days of the hour in Chillpak Hollyood Hour being 80 minutes long.
Right.
Why not, why not spruce it up a little bit and declare it the beginning of season 2 after, I think, 652 episodes?
It's a fantastic idea. And funny. So, of course.
How long, though? I'll let you decide. How long should season 2 go, though?
Wow. So how long was the first one again? 600 and what? How many episodes?
652 episodes.
652. Yeah. So
I was in my 30s when season 1 began, and I was in my 50s when season 2 began.
Wow. Let's see. In 2007, I think I was also in my 30s, I would have to say.
So see, we watched each other grow up through the magic of podcasting.
Yes, we listened to each other grow.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's another thing with language, as far as like talking about podcasting and trying to. Like, when people announce they're going to have things on their show, and I've actually mentioned this on Succotash, I feel like the language is all wrong. It's outdated. It should be called a tell, because it's all hearing oriented. And also, I have started saying I listen forward to it. But
oh, very nice. But you do look forward to it with your inner eye. Your third eye, your sense of greater awareness, you do look forward to it because you're looking forward to the holistic experience. I see myself sitting comfortably in my favorite chair with my favorite hearing apparatus on, with a glass of cognac and my beloved dog by my side.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And Epi200 as the spirit animal.
Epi200, that's a good reference. If anybody's playing Tyson Saner bingo at home, they just won, I think.
I can't even imagine that's a thing. I won't mention, no, see, now that doesn't work as a joke because I have to mention Todd Glass if I'm going to help people fill out their bingo cards. They can't fill out the space that says Tyson decided to say nothing unless they made one. So it's really nice to talk to you again. It's been about a year or so, I'd say.
Yeah, I don't quite remember the last time. I know that it was Dean and I joining you.
It was
shortly after you took over the captain's chair.
Oh yes, yeah, that was. Yeah, it wasn't that long afterwards. Certainly, it's probably 2018. I'm going to say, but I could be wrong. See, now the Lady Killers is listed as having come out in 2017, and that's what we talked about. But I think it was a little after that.
It was after that. 2017, the way they do the release dates is, I think, the first festival exposure, not the first public release.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I guess a festival is a public release because the public can buy tickets to it, but you know what I mean. It's not been distributed for any sort of wide consumption, and that was end of 2018.
Okay, yeah. So that's probably when we last spoke. Since then, I discovered that I enjoy Bollywood.
Well, how could you not? You do have two eyes and a heart.
And a heart, certainly. I like, actually, specifically, I should say I really enjoy the masala film, which is the ones with musical numbers in them. Specifically.
Oh, that's what they, that's what that references. Okay, that's good to know.
Was it something else that...
No. Well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that that's how you describe the ones with the musical numbers, or the masala films.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's a genre. Apparently, it started in 1973. Specifically, I can't remember what the name of the film was, but it's on YouTube, and I watched a little bit of it. And it turned out that it had an actor who was in the first masala film I ever saw, 2018's Thugs of Hindustan, which I recommend to anybody with ears, and Amir Khan. He was in it as a child, as like a 9-year-old or something. He was a child actor. So it's like, oh my gosh, there he is. And then,
well, yeah, he's great. I mean,
yeah, he's pretty fun. And have you seen very many Bollywood films or masala films?
I have not. And yet, if we spend the next 50 minutes or so with you regaling me with their joys and their delights, then we could actually, because of my participation, we could name this the Chillpak Bollywood Hour.
Oh, yeah, certainly. I don't know if, I might be able to do that. I can tell you I have enjoyed the ones I have seen so far, and I haven't seen that many. I've certainly seen far less than I had intended to once I saw my first one and enjoyed it, but I guess that's...
It's interesting. Were you a fan of Hong Kong cinema, perhaps, back in the 90s?
Like the Shaw Brothers and things?
A little bit after that. I'm thinking more Shoy Hark, more, Jackie Chan, more Stephen Chow.
I definitely like Jackie Chan. I've seen some of his really early work. I actually, right now, I have Wheels on Meals in my queue. Haven't seen it yet, but
yeah.
I
asked because the people that turned me on to Hong Kong films, and I was really an avid follower of the Hong Kong cinema scene in the early 90s. There were actual theaters movie theaters in Chinese neighborhoods in greater Los Angeles, where we could see day and date these films from Hong Kong.
Nice.
The day they were opening there on the big screen, projected on 35 millimeter.
Oh, wow.
And it was a great time because it was exciting cinema and new cinematic voices like John Woo.
Oh, yes.
Exploding onto the scene. But why I bring that up is because the people that turned me on to that all then, about a decade later, became big devotees of Bollywood cinema.
Really? So it's Sri Hark. Yes, I have seen, I'm going to say 2 or 3. Did he do the live action adaptation of Wicked City?
Oh, that rings a bell. That certainly rings a bell. The one that really turned me on to him, and he studied, boy, if I'm not mistaken, he might have studied in Texas. He went to film school in Texas and then went back there. But Peking Opera Blues in around 1986. Oh my goodness, that's a great film. But I could rattle off so many titles. Iron Monkey, Dragon Inn, so many great ones. And I mean, there was no more exciting. It reminded me of what it must have been like to be a cineast in the 1960s, in the late 50s and 60s. And I was thinking about this again this week when Dean and I were recording a remembrance of Max von Sydow. And we were talking about these kind of careers that really can't exist. These actors that have left behind legacies that can never be matched because the world just isn't the same anymore. And these are people like Max von Sydow in Sweden, who rises to international prominence because of his collaboration with this great filmmaker, Ingmar Bergman. He becomes the face of cinema in Sweden, but because of that is in demand by great filmmakers all over the world, including Hollywood. I mean, it's only 8 years after The Seventh Seal, where he's playing Jesus for no lesser a director than George Stevens in The Greatest Story Ever Told. And there was never more a Hollywood filmmaker than George Stevens. And you had people like Marcello Mastroianni in Italy, the face of Italian cinema, but he would be invited the world over, again, including Hollywood, to star in big movies. And Toshiro Mifune in Japan with Kurosawa. So the 90s gave me a taste of what that must have been like when you had Chow Yun-fat in these John Woo movies. And sure enough, he would make it around the world as the face of Hong Kong cinema, but then truly one of the true faces of international cinema.
Absolutely, and
it's always exciting to get to, I mean, if you really love film, it's exciting to get to be a part of that in some way.
I think Hard Boiled was probably my favorite John Woo film that I've seen, and that John Woo plus Chow Yun-fat, at least. I do like other John Woo. I do like his American movies, not all of them, but I do like.
So there was The Killer, and then there was Hard Boiled, and there was, of course, Better Tomorrow, and all of these. But I'm curious, did you see Hard Boiled or The Killer first?
Oh, I did see The Killer first. I did enjoy that a great deal, but I liked Hard Boiled more for some reason.
It's more slick, it's more polished, but I can't. I stay when I fall in love. I stay in love, Tyson, and
of course,
it was love at first sight with The Killer. So
I just that's just one of the coolest opening sequences in a film in Hard Boiled, where it's doing the credits, so it'll be like credit, and then it shows a scene of there's some movement, there's business happening, and then it goes back to the credit, and then it's cutting back and forth, and as it's cutting back and forth, it's like action. You see the glass. Next cut. tequila's going into the glass. Next cut. Soda's going in. Next cut. Napkin goes over the top of it. And then I think in the next cut it slams. And he's doing it. It goes up and he does the fizzy tequila shot. It's the first time you see his face. He drops the glass. And as he's wiping his mouth, he blows cigarette smoke out his mouth because he had taken an unseen hit off a cigarette. Then picks up a saxophone or some other wind instrument, maybe and starts playing it.
Of course.
It's just, oh my God, I love this movie already. It can't get better than this. And
what it also reminds me is how much fun people would have with opening title sequences, something that we often just eschew altogether now.
Oh, yeah. It's strange that. Well, I did find that John Woo used pretty good opening stuff in his, I think it was his first American film, Hard Target, with Jean-Claude Van Damme, one of the better or best Jean-Claude Van Damme films, in my opinion. There was a chase in the beginning of that, and it, showed the credits and showed part of the chase, and also his signature style of close-ups of objects moving very fast and whatnot, running and push-ins and things. It was pretty cool.
Who could have imagined that both of their career trajectories would end up taking them right back to Hong Kong? That's odd. And including Van Damme.
Oh,
mean, Van Damme. Yeah,
certainly.
It's so strange.
Making Wilford Brimley an action hero in that. That was pretty cool.
The wait was over at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. We need Wilford Brimley as a Cajun on horseback with shooting exploding arrows, and we finally got it. And so that's good. So yeah, Thugs of Hindostan. That's the one I recommend. So if you ever do get around to seeing it, I would recommend that you see it in Hindi with the English subtitles, rather than the two other language versions that are available, because there's a version in Tamil and a version in Telugu, I think it's pronounced. And I haven't seen the other language versions, but I know that they are speaking Hindi. And I don't mind reading subtitles, but if I'm also reading subtitles and seeing a lip sync is off, it tends to, I think, boggle my brain. So I'd rather watch them speak their language with the lip sync there and read the subtitles.
Well, you are going deep cut, as we say at this point. At what point? And I guess I did know this. I guess somebody had told me. But at what point do you know that they started going sync sound? Because it's a fairly recent phenomenon.
What's that?
In Bollywood films, for them to have been shot sync sound in any language is fairly recent. When I was there in, let's call it 2000 and just agree to disagree if I'm wrong. But right around 2000, because I was doing the behind the scenes documentary of a movie that was an American movie that was being shot there. It was an American movie about hijacked airliners being flown into the world's tallest skyscrapers by terrorists.
Oh, my.
And this movie was completed and delivered on September 10th, 2001.
Oh my God! I think I've heard of this film.
And the director Bob Mizorowski, probably most famous for producing Tombstone, the Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer telling of the gunfight at the OK Corral. Mm-hmm. He delivered the movie and then flew to Eastern Europe, where he was going to start shooting his next movie. And he arrived at his hotel in Eastern Europe on the day of September 11th, went into his hotel, couldn't understand the language that people were speaking, but he demanded to speak to the owner of the hotel because he wanted to know how they had gotten a hold of a copy of his movie.
Ah, yes.
Because it was up on the TV screens.
Wow.
And so anyway, flashback a little bit, and I'm there putting together the behind-the-scenes or what I think is going to be the behind-the-scenes documentary. That ended up changing. I ended up making an elaborate documentary about how this whole issue of 9/11 was in the zeitgeist, from Tom Clancy books to The Lone Gunman to this film, to try, honestly, to just salvage this movie for release because they were desperate, the distribution company, to make any money back off of it. And I don't think they did, but my documentary ended up winning a lot of awards. So that's not nothing, as the kids say. Anyway, but back when I just thought I was doing the typical, dog and pony show of these behind the scenes that were, required on this new medium of DVD, I was fascinated by the one element that I knew they would let me depict, because it had to be very, kind of puff pieces, these. But the differences between filmmaking in Hollywood versus in India. And that was the thing. Here's a movie about American hijacked airliners. Where would you shoot it but Ramoji Film City, Hyderabad, India? So a few things that were fascinating, Tyson. One was these enormous sound stages, the size of which, I've been to some of these research facilities where they're developing stealth aircraft, and those enormous hangars, were nothing in comparison to these sound stages.
Wow.
And they might have 100 productions going at the same time, and they could do it because none of them were shooting sync sound.
Oh. That's interesting. Yeah, that makes complete sense. You wouldn't, because you would get a horrible or amazing, depending on what your intent was, echo. Otherwise, I guess, in one of those facilities.
And there's nothing, and that's not to say that the work wasn't fantastic. I mean, even purists. Sometimes I'll caution purists who would wonder, for example, why I would advocate that the first time someone sees 8.5, Fellini's 8.5, I advocate that they watch the dubbed version, not the subtitle version. And purists will get outraged.
That's interesting.
But here's the thing. That movie was not shot in sync sound. And Fellini wrote the script for each of the languages because he knew so many languages.
Huh.
And he directed each of the recording sessions in those languages. And the cast itself was international. All the stars came from different countries. So what subtitle is it that you're supposed to be reading? But the reason that I really said it for a movie like that was because, what he's conveying visually, the psychology that's being conveyed visually, if you are spending time reading it, you are missing things that really will allow that movie to resonate on the level of dreams, which is where it needs to. But anyway, so the great technicians, great filmmakers, just because they weren't working in sync sound is not a knock. Heck, they had a more thriving film business than we did and do. And in order to get the number of movies made to satisfy demand, that's how they had to do it.
That's fascinating. I'm just thinking about because the history of Indian cinema apparently goes back almost farther than Americans. No, I guess not. I mean, it's around since Edison or something. But like a long time. There's like films that are some of them are available on Amazon Prime that I've been thinking of looking at just out of curiosity. There's the filmmaker. What's his name? Sajid Ray? Is that what I'm thinking of?
Yeah. Sajid. I can't do the first name, but Rai. I guess it's pronounced Rai.
Is it R-A-I?
And no, it's R-A-Y.
Oh.
You said it the way that that I would, and I always heard it.
Okay.
But I think we were just getting the pronunciation wrong. But the Apu trilogy, Life of Apu and World of Apu, those are amazing movies.
Okay, so these will probably go on my list along with 8.5, because I've been meaning to see that movie, and my dad has a copy of it because he likes Fellini movies, so I should definitely get around. Plus, I need to see Knights of Cabiria.
Knights of Cabiria. That is one of the most wonderful female performances. His wife, Giulietta Messina, extraordinary. I mean, I'm not going to lie. One of the reasons I fell in love with my wife is because there's a little bit of a Giulietta Messina thing going on with her. It's just one of the most radiant performances, and the ending just grabs you by the heart and doesn't let go.
Cherished friends, Bill Haywatt here with a special edition of Trouser from Henderson's Pants in honor of the 200th episode of Succotash. It's their bicentennial pants. And yes, these have been repurposed from a forgotten warehouse full of American bicentennial pants from 1976 when the United States was celebrating their 200th birthday. Oh, it's the perfect opportunity for Old Man Henderson to recoup the company's losses from way back then and celebrate this milestone episode of the world's only Comedy Soundcast Soundcast. Men and women both can show up at your neighborhood Succotash listening party decked out in a pair of these spiffy unisex red, white, and blue striped Liberty Bell bottom denim beauties. To honor the show, the faces of host Tyson Saner, engineer producer Joe Paulino, executive producer Mark Hershon, and even me, yours truly Bill Haywatt, have been heat transferred onto the buttock region of every pair. Originally designed for Gerald Ford, the color guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Solderer, and Elton John, Henderson's bicentennial pants are available for as long as Succotash keeps dropping those episodes. That's Henderson's, makers of mediocre menswear, especially the bottom parts, since 2011. And now back to Succotash. And now back to Succotash. And now back to Succotash. Succotash. I've got this, Joe. I can get this right. Now back to Succotash.
Yes, that was a Henderson's Pants advertisement created especially for this, our 200th episode. And I just wanted to take a moment before resuming my chat with Mr. Leirness to thank Bill Haywatt, Mark Hershon, and Joe Paulino for mentioning me in that advertisement. I've been hearing and enjoying Henderson's Pants commercials since well before I began hosting duties here on Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast. Heck, before I even began contributing to the show by sending in clips regularly. Some of my favorite features of Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast episodes over the years has been listening to Henderson's Pants ads. What can I say? Comedically, I have a soft spot for mock advertisements. It's kind of a thing with me. So again, thank you for including me in the show and creating a great piece of metafiction that I am now part of. It's truly an awesome feeling. And now, let's continue listening to my interview with producer Phil Leirness of Chillpak Hollyood Hour as we dive a bit further into the cinema of the world, amongst other topics.
So I have a couple other fun stories about India, about what I witnessed, if you want me to share, that you might find interesting, and you can edit them out. But how often do I get to share these things? So, one of the things that I witnessed, like when there was, turbulence in the plane or the plane was being brought down, they had the plane set on a gimbal. And so it would move, right? And literally the set would go up and down like the Starship Enterprise set, right? Wow, but unlike here, where we throw money at things and we have hydraulics and all of this, their greatest resource is people. So instead of having the gimbal run on hydraulics that costs a lot of money, they have 150 crew people just shaking the set.
Oh my gosh. It's like Fitzgeraldo.
It's quite eye-opening. And the size of these crews, and of course, the terrifying thing, being paid nothing. I mean, the water, the bottled water that the American crew was drinking cost more per day than the Indian crew itself cost.
Wow.
It's just these things are so eye-opening. But But my friend Tucker Smallwood tells a story about this, because this is how I met him, was on this film. But he talked about how at a certain time every day, attracted by the lights, the soundstage would be full of these flying bugs.
Oh, my.
And then they would send in these helicopters to spray the soundstage with something that was probably incredibly toxic, but it would kill off all the bugs, and then we get back to work in the evening. But one of the things you never expect to hear on a set in a soundstage is cut, cobra on set, cobra on set. Did he say cobra on set? Yeah, it's like a 20-foot long brown cobra. One drop of venom kills 80 people. Yeah. bring in Cobra Man, come to set. And there was a guy standing by for just such an eventuality. He comes in and he charms the Cobra and takes it away, and we get back to work. I mean, but you know, and why those things stand out is because the truth is the language of making movies is so similar from country to country throughout history. And it is such an international language, not only movies itself, but making movies, that you really could forget that you didn't speak the same language as the people you're working next to, because to get the work done, you did.
Yeah, I mean, the terminology. I guess it's very similar to, in some ways, music, and how like there's a unity in music and music theory, and being able to say, "Hey, I need you to ... and the person understands pretty much immediately if they study music, which I need to study more of myself. But like, you know, like just starting with basic things, like I need you to play a C chord. It seems like, you know, pedestrian, but if a person doesn't know what a C is, then you have to be like, well, okay, well, it's you know, you got to play a C, E, and a G, and then do that all at once, or however you like, and then we can move to the next chord.
That's right.
But yeah,
the one thing that was really funny that I'll share with you, and then we'll leave my reminiscences of days gone by behind. But as I mentioned, the film's set largely on these airliners, and they're American airliners. And here's something that they didn't think about. Sure, they brought their stars, their actors from America, but something that you need to sell the reality of a plane flight is passengers. And these are American flights, like from Chicago to New York. A little weird that they're all populated by Indian people. The call went out through the entire country for any European tourist, anyone, you know, come and be a part of this movie to do it. And it wasn't working. So what they ended up having to do, and no one will, I think, ever verify this on camera, but between you and me, what they had to do was they went to all the coastal towns, because a lot of people don't know, but surfing is great in a lot of parts of India. Wow. And so surfers from all over the world will come there. And so they would go there to get these surfers from around the world. Hey, will you come, and will their friends and will their family, will you come and be in the movie? And they offered the money, and no, we don't need the money. We're here to surf. So instead they offered them drugs.
Oh, perfect.
And that's how they got everybody.
That's funny.
So
yeah.
I'm not saying that the passengers on the plane really convey a lot of terror. They're way too blissed out.
I'm just trying to imagine that. Which film is this again?
Oh boy, I don't know now. I mean, I've mentioned the director, I've mentioned the year, I've mentioned one of the actors. I think people can probably figure it out. And I mean, not even to be too precious, but who knows what name it finally was released under. It had so many names because, you know, they were trying to salvage this thing. It's not a bad little movie, actually. All things considered, it's really not. It had a wonderful hero performance and a wonderful villain performance. And it was the first big thing from Kristanna Loken, who then became the Terminator in, was it T3, I think?
Yeah, T3, Rise of the Machines. Yes.
Yeah.
Also referred to as a Terminatrix, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been referring to myself as that, but I guess I'm so confused by all the gender terms these days, Tyson. I don't know.
There's a few new pronouns out there, is my understanding.
I really am. I mean, I believe in calling people what they want to be called.
Certainly.
You know, whatever name anybody wants to go by. However you want to spell it, that's fine. I really want to do that. And I just, I can't believe that I'm the age that I am now, 51 years old. And I so often am like nervous, like I don't know what the pronoun is. I don't know. And so I often find myself asking people, what am I supposed to say?
Sure. Yeah. You're supposed to, I guess I've heard you're supposed to say, what is your preferred pronoun?
Yeah.
Which I guess, there's probably more appropriate, scenarios in which to ask that than others. I suppose it's not necessarily the first thing you would say when you meet somebody, but if you were in a work environment, perhaps it would be. And it would be like, and since we're working together, what is your preferred pronoun, if you don't mind my asking?
It could also be a useful question on a first date.
Sure. Oh, yeah. And then, if you hear Z, Zin, Zer, one of those, and it's like, I don't know.
Well, you avoid some maybe surprises down the road if you ask. Yeah.
That's a good point. One might.
Hey, it's your show. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be asking you questions, but have you been watching Dispatches from Elsewhere?
Dispatches from Elsewhere. That sounds familiar. I'm going to say no, but what is that? Is it a series?
Yeah, there's been 3 episodes thus far. They say it'll be an anthology series, which would mean that there would be more seasons and they would change it up. But there's been 3 episodes of this season on AMC. It airs after Better Call Saul. Jason Segel created it and is one of the 4 stars, along with Eve Lindley, Sally Field, and Andre Benjamin. And it's based on a documentary from 2013 called The Institute, which was about a real life happening that took place in San Francisco from 2008 to 2011, where people found themselves immersed in a virtual alternative reality. And it kind of the best way I can sort of describe it, though it doesn't really do it justice, is it's a live action role playing game where you are the best, highest form of yourself meets the coolest scavenger hunt ever made.
Like an alternate reality game kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, it was designed by an artist, and he had so many people in the city. Bankers, shop owners, architects, security people, so many people in on this. And at one point it was thousands of people playing this game. And the whole idea of it was he wanted to inspire people to see the magic beneath the ordinary. And anyway, there was all the documentation, if you can call it that really exists about this is this one documentary.
Wow.
And Jason Segel is basing this series on it. And the reason I brought this whole sordid subject up is because the lead performance by Eve Lindley, a trans actor or trans actress.
I think actor is a neutral term.
Neutral. So trans actor, a trans actor, Eve Lindley, playing a trans person in the show, though it wasn't written for a trans person. It's just that Eve Lindley, who I think goes by she, knocked their socks off in the audition. And the moment she appears on screen, I swear to God, you fall in love with her. Her performance is so good. In fact, I mentioned Andre Benjamin, Sally Field, Jason Segel. These are not slouches. These are very talented people, and they're delightful in this. They all play awkward and in their own way self-conscious characters, but the performances themselves are somewhat self-conscious. Okay. Whereas the performance by Eve Lindley as this self-conscious young trans woman is utterly unself-conscious. It's so natural and so true. It's one of the best performances I've seen on television in a long time.
So, Transmissions from Elsewhere, is this on Hulu by any chance?
No, it's on AMC. It's only on AMC. Okay. I mean, maybe on Hulu. I don't know how Hulu works. I guess on Hulu you can find other networks programming, right?
You can, yeah. Some of it you can. I get most of my, I don't have live TV, so I watch mostly things on demand, Amazon Prime, Hulu, just added Disney Plus not that long ago.
Well, so when I said no, Tyson, that was a soft maybe.
On which? No, on which I forgot.
When I said no, it's not on Hulu.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
It was a soft maybe because I don't know I don't know of what I'm speaking.
They have FX content on Hulu. There's in fact in a somewhat speaking of or recalling Fellini's 8.5 in a very strange manner. I just, not that long ago, enjoyed the limited run series, I guess it is, Fosse Verdon.
Ah,
yes.
I did not see it, but I love both those people. I love, in real life and the actors. I love all those people.
So I didn't know that Bob Fosse was a Fellini fan, and probably because I had seen everything he had done, and now that I had actually seen, this is what I've seen. I had seen Cabaret years ago, and I still need to revisit it. And then more recently, I saw All That Jazz, which is basically 8.5 as far as I know.
Yes, yeah, the cat's out of the bag when you've seen All That Jazz. But even Cabaret, even the movie Cabaret attempts certain kind of Fellini-esque qualities. Sure.
And then there's the first Sweet Charity, which was basically a musical adaptation of Nights at Cabiria.
It was indeed. It was indeed. It wasn't basically about it. It was credited. In fact, Fellini was there on Broadway with Julieta Messina on opening night when it played. Yeah, it was a big deal.
Must have been something. I misspoke. Actually, I've seen Lenny many times. I actually, because I was a Dustin Hoffman fan, and I had a copy of Lenny, so I watched that.
Oh, well, now this is going to be a bone of contention because Dean, if only Dean were here, then we could team up on you, and he could back me up with this. Okay. I've yet to see an actor believably play a stand-up comic.
Oh, sure. Interesting.
And that includes Dustin Hoffman in Lenny. It's not that it's a bad performance. I don't mean that, because it's not obviously a concert film, but it is those performance pieces where the movie stops working for me, where I see Dustin Hoffman acting.
Interesting. Well, what about Tom Hanks in Punchline?
Oh, my goodness. What about Tom Hanks in Punchline?
It's one of my favorite performances of his, and at least as far as, sure. It's sad. Sure, it's sad that he has coronavirus, but he did make me sit through Punchline. I thought his meltdown on stage was pretty great. In that, I tend to like moments like that when people have meltdowns, or pretending to, I should say. And real meltdowns are rarely. I don't want to say they're not entertaining, because they can be, but I mean, I don't tend to root for somebody to have a meltdown, but I do enjoy seeing them portrayed. And you had a really good one in that movie, so I don't know. I know that people hate
that was great. I was glad that you had the disclaimer that you don't root on people to have meltdowns.
I definitely don't. No.
Yeah, I'm not rooting for it, but I will enjoy it.
I will enjoy seeing it portrayed. I certainly, I've actually started going to see live stand-up more often a couple of years ago, before I had my child, and there's some really nice people locally, and I think one of the first couple times that I visited the open mic, there was a guy who went up, and he didn't do as well as I guess he felt that he could have, and I suppose it feels different up there. Well, I know it does, because I've been up there at least twice, but which is not a lot. But I laughed at his stuff, and he didn't feel great afterwards, and I said that was funny. I definitely laughed at the stuff. Some good jokes he had there, and I was like, oh, thank you, because and some people don't even like to hear that was funny afterwards. They're just too caught up with how horrible it felt to bomb, which is what they felt.
Yeah. I mean, I'm what am I trying to say? I don't think anyone being told ever, whether they're a stand-up comic or a comedy writer or anything, I don't think anyone ever being told, hey, that was funny, is satisfying.
Yeah.
You either get a laugh or you don't, and
Sad.
you either hear the laughs or you don't. And, it was very strange. I went to see an improv show the other night, and the team was getting their notes from their director after the show, and the director, and I was just curious. I'm always interested in like how people communicate to each other, and I'm interested in that world of improv, which I have not done. Certainly not as a performer. I'm interested. Like, what's the communication they're getting? What form do the notes take, and how different are they maybe from what a director in a scripted show would give, right?
Oh, like after the show.
Yeah, after the show. So I eavesdropped. But one of the things that blew me away was he said, but you got some big laughs. And then I started coughing, and I'm sure they just thought I had coronavirus, but I almost choked because I sat in that show. I didn't count any big laughs. I didn't hear any big laughs. But maybe to him, they sounded like big laughs, in which case, wow, I'm glad I didn't go on any other night.
So did your coughing sound anything like
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say, well, yeah,
I used to do improv in a group. Started in 93 when I was 19. And for the next, I think, 4 years? So like 97, a little bit into 98. I did various, with the theater sports, I kind of moved into doing long-form improv, like the Herald and whatnot, locally. Mostly Herald, not so much whatnot. And it's the notes are just like they're usually fairly encouraging, I find, because it's just more like it's pointing out like if a person blocked an offer, it's like because it usually is something that they remember because they made an offer, and they're more likely to remember that something didn't go right, and the note would be like, well, I understand I understand how that can happen, and I guess that didn't end up being what the scene was going to be about, and it's just I'm not sure if it was a block or not. And actually, mostly it ends up being questions for whoever's the leader. It's like, do you think that transition worked out okay? Because I thought it sucked, but people seem to roll with it. Did I make things harder for you? It's like any of these.
Yeah,
it's just a very supportive environment, generally speaking, as long as you got a good group of people, because some people really like to steal the spotlight. It's called shining, I believe. Not to be confused with the telepathy that's in Stephen King stories.
Oh, but maybe that's what it's about. Subtextually, it's about improv.
Could be. Yeah,
It's not about alcohol abuse. It's about improv, which is a different kind of drug and far more deadly.
Oh, yes. Yes.
But when you refer to these people who try to steal the spotlight, it's okay. You can mention Dean. He's not here.
That's funny. Yeah, that's funny. I remember seeing him do a bit of improv with Zach Bagans in a YouTube video that I saw years and years ago. That was pretty fun. I wish I could get out and see more improv, but there's not a lot of it here anymore. There's a couple of groups, I think. There's a lot of time at home with the kid. It's necessary.
With the kid, that's improv in and of itself.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
And it's important. He's a wonderful little guy, and I want to make sure I'm here for him. And so he knows who I am. So, I hear that's important.
Yeah. I hear. Where do you hear that from?
I don't know. And my conscience
in the notes, you hear that in the notes that are being delivered by to an improv team after a show.
It's coming in over my earpiece. It's like stay there.
It's one of the notes Hershon left behind in the captain's chair.
It's like, make sure you pay attention to your kid. They're like, yeah, of course I will. Yeah, I was there in the delivery room. I went through that whole experience. That was pretty amazing. It's an ongoing, amazing experience. So that's cool.
I was thrown for a little bit of a loop that I dropped a reference to Mark Hershon, and then we were in a delivery room all of a sudden. That was that was a whiplash for me.
Oh yeah, Sorry. Well, yeah, it's just I thought it was weird to make the note have anything to do with that, because the timing was around the same. The timing was, it was not the timing of the joke, or not the joke, the reference I delivered, but the actual timing of taking over the Succotash show, if it can be called that, and if it can be called taking over, and having a child. So the two, kind of
that's true.
in a very short period of time between each other.
Well, then, so I know that Succotash is going on a hiatus after episode 200. I certainly hope that's not the case with the child as well.
Oh no, I hope not. No.
Okay, so they're not hereafter going to be linked in the same way.
No, they're not Corsican twins or whatever the reference is. One goes, the other goes, or one gets hurt, the other feels pain. No. Although Jareth does make an appearance in at least one of the episodes. An appearance. See, that's another one of those visual words taught with a audio medium. Basically, I was recording my host audio, I guess you could say, my host segments, and he was kind of like dozing in the room, and then occasionally he'd make a noise, and then once or twice I decided I'll just leave that in. It's kind of cute. And
good.
Yeah. So I'm glad they did that, because it gave my mother a reason to listen to my show.
Well, there used to be Boozin' with Bill. Is there still Boozin' with Bill?
There hasn't been one made in a while, but I understand they are working on it. They do want to do something in the future, and they did actually do a brand new Henderson's Pants spot. So that's something. So
well, it's certainly been supplanted. Boozin' with Bill has been supplanted by Snoozin' with your son.
Snoozin' with the son. That's funny. See, that's the problem. As I said, that's funny.
Yeah, that's funny. Laughing. That's funny. Yeah, no, I knew that it wasn't funny. You know how I knew? You know how I knew it wasn't funny was because you said it was funny.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's the problem with it. Does, it is funny. There are people. I've seen people. When they're on the stage, there's this whole thing. Like they can't stand the silent spots. So I mean, like they'll panic and attack the crowd like right after like the third silence, if it's just not enough of a chuckle. And the thing is a lot of people at open mics, they're listening, and that's when you listen, you don't necessarily laugh and react, but you are listening. We're intently listening. We're all looking at you. We're all nodding our heads. Yeah. We're here with you. we're excited. But then, people are like, and then it was my mother. Okay. So that you didn't like that. Okay. Well, anyway, and then they move on to the next thing. It's like, no, but just give it, relax, dude. Relax. Well, then it's like, how can you, that's not perhaps the best place to relax, when you're on a stage with a lot of people talking or looking at you, but there are worse places. I mean, I think public speaking probably stimulates that part of the brain that if there is such a thing as, what's that called, when things are passed on from generation to generation, in a psychic sort of way. Epigenetics?
Oh, very good. Very good.
Yeah, so maybe it's an epigenetic thing for like when people used to have to stand up in front of crowds and beg for their lives and like plead their case and whatnot. So like the public speaking is sort of like touches that nerve in some way.
I mentioned my friend Tucker earlier. He, decorated war veteran, killed in action in Vietnam, sheep pulled, last rites given, and then a young doctor said, wait a minute, bring him back here. A character in Apocalypse Now is based on him. Oh, wow. But he was the first African-American director in live television back in Baltimore before the Vietnam War. Oh. And he said to me that the only thing that is comparable to the immediacy of being under enemy fire is jumping out of an airplane and that moment on live television where they point at you and say, we're on in 5, 4, 3, 2, that they feel physically the same, those moments.
Oh, wow.
So that's a little bit what you're describing, right? That there's our body knows that it's under attack, that, death is in the offing here.
Absolutely.
If we don't find our way out of it, it's those moments that show us what we're made of, and that's it with improv, with stand up, with taking the stage, with it just being you and a mic. Mm-hmm. And yes, comedy, yes, stand up, you write your material. That's true. That is a big difference. But the truth is, in any kind of live performance setting, the art of it is about embracing what wants to come forward. Mm-hmm. And sometimes what stands in the way of what wants to come forward is what you have prepared, right? Yeah. Even in acting, you do all this preparation, ideally, so that you can let go of the preparation and really embrace what wants to come forward. But you have to prepare enough so that you've activated those parts of the brain that seek control and that can stand in your way in the moment. I don't know. I got really philosophical in a way that made me just hear so many Succotash listeners turning to other podcasts.
I like that people still refer to that as if it's a thing, like
the idea that they could tune out and go somewhere else. Like Todd Glass used to say, the show comes out. It's on Fridays, right after Mark Maron, and it's Mark Maron's podcast. But you can listen whenever you want. So it's that's his running gag. Also, I found early on there's this kind of some podcasters give off this vibe like they don't like that they literally think of other people's podcasts as competition in the same way that, say, a radio program would be, like a live radio program, which it's just not. You can listen to a podcast whenever you want to. So, I mean, you don't have to go, you know what? No, I'd rather listen to this thing that's happening at exactly the same time, which is, the thinking. So it's like, no. You can, it's not that kind of competition. It's a community. I mean, that's how I prefer to think of it anyway. So that's my.
Well, I think that's a very healthy way to look at it, Tyson.
Yay.
I felt like it's important before you go on hiatus to give you some affirmation.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I can always use the affirmation. I take it heartily and happily.
Hey, Succotash. This is Darren from Couch Revisited, previously known as Dylan Brody's Neighbor's Couch. Just want to thank you guys for all of your support over the years for our podcast and all of the other podcasts that you guys cover. It means the world to me. I'm sad that you guys are going on hiatus, but I hope you come back soon. It's been a joy working with all of you through the years.
Well, thank you very much, Darren. Thank you for your kind words and your contributions to Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast over the years. We appreciate it all a great deal. By the way, folks, you can find Darren Staley of Couch Revisited on Twitter at Crobama, that is Cropama. Dylan Brody can be found at DYLANBRODY, and you can listen to the show on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and wherever fine soundcasts are available. Also, you can go to their main website, which is apparently www.activevoiceproductions.com. That is ACTIVEVOICEPRODUCTIONS.com. And here's the final part of my interview of producer Phil Leirness of Chillpak Hollyood Hour. Coming up later, a few parting words from executive producer Mark Hershon as we discuss the past, present, and potential future of the show, and perhaps at least one startling revelation within. So stay tuned.
All right, Tyson, lightning round. What should you have asked me that you haven't?
Oh, no.
Let's see here. How is Fuzz Aldrin?
Oh, my goodness. Fuzz Aldrin is next to me, is purring, is the picture of health. Fuzz Aldrin will be at the, God, is it possible that she's 8 years old now?
Possible.
8.5. She's 8.5. Oh, my goodness. It's a theme emerging. She's 8.5 years old. And she is soon in June going to be taking her first airplane trip with me. We're gonna let her come on the plane with us, and she's gotten a clear bill of health to fly. So she's she's a rock star.
That's fantastic. That's good. How is How is this is a silly question. I mean, how is married life?
It is a ball buster from the word go. No, it is. It's terrific. It from the very beginning. You know, I was together with my lady love for a good 11 years, I think, at least, before we got married. 11 and a half years.
Oh.
And I was shocked at how deeply getting married transformed everything, how much focus it brought in terms of what really mattered and what's really important. And so it really felt like getting shot out a portal into a world where everything was transformed.
Yeah.
So there's that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, I got married back in 2003. And yeah, it is really, it's one of those things that really does, it transforms everything in ways you don't, that you cannot plan for. Much actually now, like the new journey is having the child. And that, as far as a priority refocuser, is hugely effective at creating that reality. And there's nothing I would change about that. It's fantastic in the best way. And it's just the next step, you know? And that's, and in a fantastic way. Yeah, sorry, I guess.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I didn't ask.
Yeah.
No, how long had you known your wife before you the married?
How long? I'm gonna say less than a year.
Oh my goodness! See, quite the opposite sort of experience.
Yeah, it was more or less a whirlwind romance, as they say, as one would say. I'd met her briefly, and then we kind of had mutual friends, and then we started kind of showing up at the same places together, and then there were opportunities to talk and get to know one another, and then it just kind of coalesced and became a thing. And then,
I knew very quickly after I started dating Lily that I was going to marry her, introduced her to some of my key friends and said, this is who I'm going to marry. And I knew it. And then they all figured that I had just changed my mind because so many years went by and it didn't happen.
Uh-huh.
And what really had happened was this odd knowing came over me, which was I had sort of gotten to the age where I wondered, well, maybe this is just not going to happen for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it did, what came over me was this sense of, oh, well, then this is the last time I'm going to be somebody's boyfriend. I would like to actually be good at this.
Yes.
And then when we got engaged, I want to take our time with this because I would like to really learn how to be a good fiance and what this means and to really savor every step along the way and really take my time. And the beautiful thing about it ended up being that people were so excited, like her family was so excited to welcome me to the family soon after we had started dating. And then they too had kind of given up on any idea that we were ever going to actually have a wedding or any kind of marriage. So that when it did end up happening that we got engaged, it surprised everyone so much more than it would have when we first fell in love. And so the celebration was just enormous because it was so long in coming. And that was really quite delightful and surprising because I half wondered, well, maybe the attitude will be, oh, well, you guys are kind of already married.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But it was nice. And I think it was, your experience was so different than mine in terms of the amount of time. And I think it's nice for people to know that it can happen any number of ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no real one perfect template for, I don't want to say success, but, whatever it is, it's certainly sustaining. So, yeah, I guess it is technically success. I don't understand why I have to beat myself up over little things like that.
No, exactly. All right.
Put one in the win column.
So is there anything else that we need to discuss? Is there anything else on tonight's agenda?
Gosh, I would like to, I guess, thank you for the support that you've shown the show over the years. I just listened to the first episode recently. Like today, I re-listened to the first Succotash just to kind of get an idea of what the show sounded like before I crossed paths with it. I also listened to this week's Chillpak Hollyood Hour, and my listenership had fallen off in a while, I must admit. So I wanted to extend my condolences on the passing of your mother. I had not actually heard about it until earlier today.
Yeah, that's been a drag. Grief is a land with no roadmap. There is no easy way through this, and it's so important for people when they lose a loved one, when a loved one dies, to really take care of yourself. Because grief, like I said, it's all I know about him is he's a mugger in an alley waiting to pounce. Mm-hmm. So that's been a rough one, but I encourage you to listen, Tyson, and I encourage everyone to listen to this coming week's show. I think it's episode 16 of season 2, where we welcome. It's a full show. The first half we welcome as a special guest Emmy Sunshine. Emmy Sunshine was a true prodigy. A singer-songwriter who, before she was 10, had already gained national attention, had performed at the Grand Ole Opry. She's now, at the ripe old age of 15, about to release an album called Family Wars with her band Emmy Sunshine and the Rain. And this music is so great. She, again, at all of 15, has dedicated her career to kind of being a counter to popular country music. She's indeed a very soulful and skillful purveyor of a genre best described as Americana. And she's spectacular. And anyway, Dean interviewed her there in Detroit for the first part of the show. And it's such an inspiring interview. And then the second half of the show, Dean reviews The Invisible Man. And like I mentioned, we discuss the legacy of Max von Sydow. And I share a hilarious story with one of the most successful black screenwriters in Hollywood, who in fact was a white man. So it's a full brew on this coming week's show, Chillpak Hollyood Hour, on Odyssey Radio and iHeartRadio.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. And what was the number of that show again? Because this will come out probably a little bit after it's aired, I imagine.
Yeah, it's Chillpak Hollyood Hour, Season 2, Episode 16. You can get it at chillpakhollywood.com, on iTunes, wherever good podcasts can be found, Tyson.
Certainly. Okay, I definitely look forward to that. I'll be listening, because I'll definitely have more time to listen to podcasts that I want to listen to now that I'm not putting together a podcast made up of other people's podcasts anymore for a while. So yes, it gives me a chance to catch back up on things that I've been missing, including Chillpak Hollyood Hour, unfortunately, which was and continues to be one of my favorite podcasts or soundcasts, as we still tend to call them over here.
That's very kind, and it is sort of the tragic irony, isn't it, that you got into the position you were because you enjoy listening to such a wide array of soundcasts, and yet taking on that position stands in the way of listening to such a wide array of soundcasts.
It is absolutely irony. And I guess somewhat tragic, but yes, I will have to agree with that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. If you ever do happen to watch Thugs of Hindustan, please let me know what you think of it, because I'd love to discuss it if you hate it or if you love it.
I will do. You'll be the first to know.
I appreciate that.
Hey, Tyson and Mark, in fact. Hi, it's Davian from Strange Times and the Bitter Sound and an increasingly decreasing voice. Maybe it's COVID, maybe it's Corona, maybe it's just gin and tramadol. Who can tell? Not me, that's for sure. Anyway, guys, I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate all the support that Succotash has given Strange Times. I really hope that this hiatus is a positive one, in as much as that it's used for regrouping and for, more importantly, a return of possibly one of the most important and finest podcasts that there is, Succotash. All great bands have a hiatus, and I think that should extend to great podcasts, of which Succotash clearly is one. It's going to have a hiatus, and it's going to come back with the same, pretty much, hopefully, lineup, and playing a healthy mix of the hits that you like, plus with new stuff in it. Succotash, please come back. Sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Davian. I do hope your voice has recovered since you sent in that lovely bit of audio. I've enjoyed listening to Strange Times podcast over the years, and have even enjoyed a guest appearance or two. None other than Succotash's own Bill Haywatt does announcing for Strange Times, including the disclaimer at the top of pretty much every episode I've ever heard. I do hope Strange Times podcast continues for as long as it brings you and others joy. You can follow Davian Dent on Twitter at DAVIANDENT. You can find Kat Sorens at, and this is all lowercase, just like the previous one, MABVUKU. You may or may not be able to reach him at that Twitter account. Dom Risk is at DOMRISK, all lowercase letters, and the show can be found at capital STRANGE, capital T, capital SHOW. And the show can be found at strangetimesshow.com.
This episode of Succotash is sponsored in part by TrumPoetry.com, a chronological ode to a fake muse. Enjoy a rhyming spin on the news of the day every day, as well as over 500 archived daily verses thoroughly covering the White House, America, and the world with a sticky caramel coating that's impossible to remove. That's TRUMPoetry.com. Everything you need to know in rhyming couplets. TrumPoetry.com.
Yes, TrumPoetry.com. So many good ones this April. I had to pick the one from the 7th of April, 2020, number 288. You could suck at your work, an incompetent jerk, with an absence of qualifications. Your habits, disgust, tell a lie, break a trust, with an eye on more dark machinations. You can live as a fake who is just on the take, dig up women whose children you've sired. You can fuck, break, or lose any damn thing you choose, but make me look bad, and you're fired. For an ill-mannered fop can go straight to the top if he cops to whose bottom he's kissin'. He can rob, steal, or plunder, rip values asunder, and make his opponents go missin'. If you lack the right stuff, but you donate enough, you can brag to the world that you're wired. All the evidence shows that I'm not wearing clothes, but make me look bad, and you're fired.
Right? Right.
And let's get right back into it with the second half of my interview with Succotash Comedy Soundcast Soundcast executive producer Mark Hershon. We just released an episode of Antisocial Show that we recorded back in July of 2019, because that's how far back I've archived Antisocial Show episodes, not being able to churn those out every week either. So that one goes back to then, and that was a good one actually. There's not much stuff came out of there, but again, it was kind of unpredictable. But that also had a camera involved, so there will be a video version available of that after I edit the video for episodes 75 through 79, which post for a while there, I was posting the show and the video of the show in the same week, and then alternating that with Succotash, and it was just bing, bang, boom, and it was happening, and then it just started being more like bing, bang,
yes,
boom.
Yeah, well, that was the problem I had with trying to, at one point I was determined to make Succotash a weekly show, and I just, real life just kept impinging on the time to get it done. It's like, well, no, now I've got to do this thing for work, or now I'm on the road and I got to go to a meeting or whatever.
Quite frankly, I'm starting to hate soundcasts. I have to listen to these things. I have to listen to 6 of these, 8 sometimes, if I can't figure out, if there's a good clip in one of them. It's like, it seems my entire life is listening to soundcasts now. Oh wait, no, that's sorry.
Which could be. When I was doing reviews for both Split Sider and Huffington Post, it was great because I was sort of able to double up on everything. I could not only just listen for reviews, but I could find them and then use them for the show. So I was like cross-promoting myself, which was fantastic. I'd say on the show, here's a show I just reviewed for Vulture.com or Huffington Post, and then play it. So that was great.
Oh, yeah.
But again, it becomes overwhelming. And that again is the idea of, okay, 850,000 shows. What purpose can a Succotash style show serve?
Right.
Do we feature 6 shows, and how do we pick them? And are they current? Are they past? What are they? And what do they mean in the scheme of things?
Right.
Because we're not reviewing them. We don't really review the shows. We just sort of play them.
Yeah. Just sort of say, here's something we think you might be entertained by as well, or here is something that might be... Well, it's always, it's like you said, a Whitman sampler, the tasting plate. If you are looking for something to listen to, here is something that we can show you a part of, or have you listen to a part of, and if you want to listen to more, you can find them at blah, 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 blah.
And early on, I remember I would play clips of shows that I thought were really just god-awful. And I would say it. And I just go, well, this is just so you know that what else is out there. It was kind of the 5 guys in a basement somewhere in the Midwest doing you didn't know where they were coming up with their ideas or what they meant or anything. And then I realized, well, you know what? I am playing these clips, and I'm not asking people for permission to play them because that's its own pain in the ass. So the least I can do is not disparage anybody and just let the clips live on their own and just go, hey, here's a clip from this interesting show that we found. And if you don't like it, that's your business.
It becomes very, it's like I kept saying, comedy is subjective. It's really, it really is. Sure, there's a lot of universal things, mostly having to do with pain, but
when I see the numbers some shows get, that I can't believe that they're still going after dozens of episodes, because to me they're just, I just don't find them entertaining. But clearly people do, because they get great ratings.
I appreciate that you always, with only one exception, and I actually did want to talk about this at some point, you always played the clips that I sent you. I don't think you ever really turned any of them down. There was one, and I don't blame you for this. I might have even brought this up, but it was, I don't think I explained it well enough. There was one show called John Eats Carrots. And while I was hunting for clips, I came across this show, and I don't understand what this is. And then what it was is it's a guy, kind of like on a camera, like we are, listening in a room. It's a video podcast, by the way, so I had to sample the sounds, which was a bit of a challenge back in the day. And he's sitting in a room, and he's not really looking at the camera. He's sort of looking off and listening to other people's podcasts, and then eating his way through a small bag of baby carrots. So... So it's just, and this is just goes on for, and not even the entire episode. So like, I was like, well, which one am I going to listen to? How about this one where they do Four Eyes and a Beard? That's a show I've heard before. The one with Scott Mosier and Matt Myra. That should be fun. So I'm like, oh, it's one I've heard. Well, that's okay. I'll listen to it. And it's just him, just listening to the podcast and kind of nodding. Occasionally he'll snicker. And he'll just keep eating baby carrots. I think until the bag is gone. I think that was his thing. So he'd just keep eating them until the bag is gone. And
I spurned that clip.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you because I really didn't describe what was happening well enough, and it was one of those ones you kind of have to know what's happening. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. You're just kind of hearing kind of like crappy audio on a podcast and crunching. You know,
the one thing people claim to hate more than anything is hearing people eat on the microphone.
Oh yeah, which is hilarious because the first non-dress rehearsal episode of Succotash had Mike and Tom Eat Snacks on it, which is basically them talking and eating. Is that show still going?
No, they got to 100 episodes and bailed.
100 and done 100.
Forever to get to. It took them forever to get to the 100th episode because I was an avid fan.
Oh, that's funny.
Of Mike and Tom, and they got to 99, and then I think 8 months later they did episode 100, and then that was it. They've never, as far as I know, they've never come back.
I even clipped one of those as well because I found one where they were eating some kind of avocado salsa or something, and then I guess it's Mike. No, it was reaction. Tom. Tom had the allergic reaction. He's like, well, this is interesting. This comes up now, but I've got a bit of an allergy. And you can hear him like kind of starting to go, I think this is alarming. I can't remember exactly, but it was pretty funny.
And I think it was homemade. They had somebody come in and actually make the guacamole in the studio.
They did,
if I remember correctly.
They did. That's right.
It was fantastic.
So funny and bizarre. Like, why? Why would they? Why would he?
Don't know.
For the views. It's not even
all for the spectacle.
The oral spectacle. Yeah.
I like to think we've done some good with the
so.
show in terms of raising awareness of shows that are out there and giving people an entertaining way to listen to them. I sure enjoyed doing things like the Henderson's Pants ads and some of the other nonsense that I would do with Joe Polino and Bill Haywatt, particularly doing the drinking segment with Bill.
Oh, Boozing with Bill, yeah.
Boozing with Bill and that was actually suggested by the guy that's the publisher of the newspaper I do editorial cartoons for, because he would listen to Succotash all the time, and he goes, "It always sounds like Bill's half in the bag. You guys should do like some sort of segment."
That's pretty.
And so I mentioned that to Bill, and you know what so we did that. But it's funny you had Phil on, because I was just going to say, you know what, I think we should. This is our 200th episode. We're going into our hiatus, and I think a lot of people probably already know this. Listen to the show, but I think we should maybe pull the curtain back a little bit.
Okay.
The show behind the scenes and let people know that. And you can cut this out if you want. But I want people to know that Bill Haywatt and Joe Polino are one and the same.
What?
But the funniest thing was I had Phil Leirness I think I told you this story. Phil Leirness was live in the studio when we were in Joe Polino's home studio up in Sausalito, Northern California. And Studio P, home of the hit. And so Joe's behind the glass. I mean, he's got a professional studio in his house, right? And he's behind the glass running the board, and it's time for Bill Haywatt to come in and do I think we were doing a live Boozing with Bill, or it could have been a live Henderson's Pants read. I can't remember what it was. I think it was Boozing with Bill, and he comes in. I mean, Joe disappears and then comes into the studio where Phil and I are. Now he's got this crappy wig on and this really loud sport coat, as we've often depicted Bill is wearing. And Phil could not believe they were the same people, because I mean,
that's funny.
Joe is a professional voice actor and can do great characters, and Phil had never figured out they were both the same person.
That's great. Phil, while I was talking to him for the chat, he had actually asked if there was going to be another Boozing with Bill forthcoming, and I said I really don't know. I assume that there might be.
Certainly in the future there will be. I think if I hadn't seen so many recipes for it, I think it would have been the optimum opportunity to have gone out with a quarantini in honor of Yeah, in honor of the coronavirus.
Would it be orange?
It probably would be orange. It probably would have Corona in it.
Ooh.
Knowing Bill.
Orange Corona.
Probably. And vodka. And Lord knows what else.
Grand Marnier.
Perhaps. And some sort of cough medicine. He loved putting just one weird thing in. He made one that had barbecue sauce in it one time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You guys, now, you guys actually drank a couple of those mixtures, right?
We did them live, and he made me drink every single one of them that we made.
Okay, because if not, that was fantastic drink acting, because it sounded like you drank them. One of them was like a wolf spritzer?
Yes, the wolf spritzer, yes.
Mm-hmm. I was also, one of them, I don't remember what it was called, but I do recall it not being that bad.
Did you make them, or you just remembered we just said they weren't that bad?
You said they weren't that bad. Like, it's not too bad. It was like kind of had some bitters in it, I think.
Couple of them, I think that was the Wolf Blitzer, because there was some sort of Wolfenstein-y kind of bitters or something. But there were a couple that were actually really good, but most of them were just hideous and probably not fit for human consumption, quite frankly.
Funny. I love stuff like that.
It's been a pleasure having you filling the host position.
Oh, well, I'm honored that I was chosen to attempt to carry the show forward for a while.
Oh, no, you've done a fantastic job, and you did a great job as the associate producer, finding clips, cutting clips, representing the show in fine fashion.
I appreciate that.
And I just think, once we get a chance to kind of sit back and figure out what the next decade of Succotash should be, dare I be so bold? Not that we actually made it to a decade, but pretty damn close.
Pretty damn close.
I think it'll be great. And we've talked about things, about doing some improv stuff. I don't know if that would even be part of Succotash. Maybe that'd be a different podcast.
It's hard to say. I've been working on putting together a show called Happiness or Something Like It, which is about mental health and wellness and self-care, basically.
Nice.
So
sounds like it would help more people than Succotash has, quite frankly.
It's so hard to say. I wish there was a way to track the numbers. I wish there was more feedback. Well, there used to be a lot of feedback on the show, and on the iTunes, it's full of good ratings. So that's good.
Yeah.
It's got to count for something.
It does. But we never really made a solid push at trying to get sponsorship. Because of the nature of the show, I think it kept networks from wanting to pick us up. Because we were featuring shows that were clearly not be on the network. Which is probably why we don't really hear shows like Succotash out there. There's probably a few. I've not been tracking them. So we'll see what the future will bring. You and I will keep in touch, and we'll figure out what to do. Like I said, I'm determined to keep the feed open so it doesn't close up on us like some sort of a bad scar.
Yeah. Like a hungry Venus flytrap.
Yes, exactly. Beautiful.
Well, that's good to hear.
When you close off the show, have our email addresses. So if people want to reach out and give us suggestions or shout outs or tell us something, they can. I'll put it into the blog. So it's there. Not that I don't know if anybody ever goes to the blog, but it's there for every episode.
And it's succotashshow.com?
The blog is at succotashshow.com.
Okay, yeah.
But our email addresses, they can comment at the blog space if they want. I think every show has a comment section. So not that the only comments we've ever gotten have been people like manufacturers from China trying to get us to buy things. So I cut those out. They never make it to the web.
I put a link to that www.succotashshow.com at the end of every episode of Tyson Saner Gamer.
Well, thank you. That's perfect. That's great.
So people have to watch to the end to see it, but it's there. There's links.
It's worth waiting for.
Yeah,
it's worth waiting for.
So there's that. Just trying to, So I also, that's why I appreciate the promotion of it, because it's also serves as a commercial for antisocial show Gaming Outside My Comfort Zone, which is my wife's program, which you can find on the website. Find on on the YouTube channel, Sexy Laura 27 Games. And then I'll spell that later, of course. Oh, why wouldn't I spell it now? Capital S-E-X-X, that's 2 X's. Y. Capital L-A-U-R-A, the numeral 2, the numeral 7, capital G-A-M-E-S. Sexy Laura 27 Games. And then Succotash Show is also on there. And then I do say, alternately, you can go to www.succotashshow.com because it starts with TysonSaner.com, and then it's like you'll find links to these 2 things, and you can also go to their own sites, but the image is there. I always use the Succotash image at the thing.
Lovely.
Yeah, throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, basically.
Got to do it.
Yeah.
Cross promotion, so there we go.
Jeez, yeah.
All right, Tyson. Well, I will let you get back to your evening already in progress.
All right, Hunter says hi.
Hello, Hunter.
My wife Laura says hi.
Hi, Laura.
Jareth says something that sounds like hi.
All right. Hello, Jared.
He has actually started saying hi now. And
That's fantastic. That's the best.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's really great. It really is the best.
It is.
It is the actual best.
I love seeing the pictures of them up on the social medias.
Oh, yeah. Laura puts more on hers than I do on mine, but it's fine because she's better at that as far as putting pictures of him up. I'll put up one occasionally on mine. I certainly take a lot of pictures. I mean, lots of pictures, lots of film. Well, it's not film. Lots of video. Lots of video.
You can call it film if you want.
I still call movies films. I'm going to rent a film. Yeah, it's like that's. Anyway.
Well, I'm glad we were able to put our conversation on tape here tonight.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, and thank you for creating the show. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. And this is not farewell. It's only that's not how it goes. This isn't. It's not.
This isn't. It's not goodbye. It's not goodbye. It's just see you later.
See you later.
Something like that.
Why not?
Yeah,
I like that.
All right. Very good. Tyson will be talking. Thank all the listeners for listening and enjoying the show or not enjoying the show, however their reaction is.
Sure. Thank them for passing the Succotash.
Perfect. Yes. Please pass the Succotash.
Please pass the Succotash. I really don't know what else to add at this point. It's been a fun ride over these last 9 years since the show began, and 8 years of my involvement. I feel like going on too much at this point might be gratuitous. Mostly, I'd just like to thank everyone here at Succotash for making the show what it has been throughout the years. Scott Carvey's theme music, Bill Haywatt's Mellifluous announcing, Henderson's Pants, and TrumpPoetry.com's fake sponsorship. All the soundcasters who had interesting ideas that they took the time to record and publish so they might one day be listened to by us here at Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast, and anyone else who might be in search of something to listen to. And of course, Mark Hershon's creation of the show in the first place. Mostly, I'd like to thank you, the listener, for taking the time to make Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast, part of your listening life. Even if you're only listening to this episode. Well, of course you are. You wouldn't be able to hear this otherwise. So, for Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast, I've been Tyson Saner, saying farewell and gisposta, and reminding you that we've got at least 200 episodes in the archive, which you can find at www.succotashshow.com. It's SUCCOTASHSHOW. And you can still email Mark Hershon at mark@succotashshow, same spelling of Succotash Show as before, and Mark is with a C at the end, M-A-R-C. So if you wouldn't mind terribly, I'd like very much to remind you to please pass the Succotash.
You've been listening to Succotash Chats, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast with your host, Tyson Saner. Brought to you by Henderson's Pants, TrumpPoetry.com, and
imagine your company's name right here.
Find us on the web at SuccotashShow.com, on iTunes, on Stitcher Smart Radio, on SoundCloud, on YouTube, on Dunder, on Blitzen, on iHeartRadio, and on a laughable app. You can hear us streaming and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Succotash Show. Email us at TysonSaner@succotashshow.com. Or call into the Succotash hotline at our toll call number, 818-921-7212.
That number again is 818-921-7212.
You can also upload clips from your favorite comedy soundcasts directly to us by using our direct upload link at hightail.com/u/Succotash. Production of Succotash is overseen by Joe Paulino through the auspices of Studio P Sausalito, hosted by Tyson Saner. Our executive producer is Mark Hershon. Our musical director is Scott Carvey. Our booth assistant is Kenny Durges. Until next time, I'm your loyal booth announcer, Bill Haywatt, reminding you to please pass the Succotash. Goodbye.